What's going on, everybody? We're back with another Druid build for Diablo 4 in Season 1, and today we're going to be covering the Low Life Bulwark build. And let me be honest, this build is absolutely insane. It is hands down the best all-around build for high-tier Nightmare dungeons. You just breeze through tier 100s, but you can also face tank Lilith and beat her without really needing to do any of the mechanics. It's honestly pretty insane just how strong this build really is. We're going to cover two ways to do this build. One way with the Crone Staff, and then another way with a one-handed and a totem. I will say the Crone Staff is the ideal way to run this build, but it is possible to have it run efficiently without needing any uniques. First, let's go ahead and start with the skill tree. The skill tree will vary a tiny little bit whether you're running Crone Staff or non-Crone Staff, and then also your toolbar will change with just one ability. But you're going to want 1 point into Claw, and then go into Wild Claw for the chance to attack twice. You're going to go Storm Strike, and then into Fierce Storm Strike for the extra chance at Vulnerable. Come down here, we want 3 points into Predatory for the critical strike chance. 2 points into Digigrade for the extra movement speed. Then you're going to want 1 point into Ancestral Fortitude, and then 3 into Vigilance for the damage reduction. You put a full 5 points into Bulwark, but with our items, we are up to 12 points into Earthen Bulwark. And then obviously we go into Innate Bulwark because that is where our main damage comes from. Then you want 1 point into Cyclone Armor, and then go into Preserving Cyclone Armor for the extra damage reduction. Come down here, and we want 1 point into Poison Creeper, and then the extra chance for critical strikes while using Poison Creeper. Going to put 1 point into Hurricane, and then into Savage Hurricane, again for the extra damage reduction. We put 3 points into Crushing Earth, 3 points into Stone Guard for the damage. 1 point into Neurotoxin, that way we can get into our 1 point for Toxic Claws. You're going to want 3 points in Envenom. Then we do use Petrify with this build, and then going into Prime Petrify. Just that way we do get the extra critical strike damage for a little bit longer. Then 3 points into Defiance, 3 points into Natural Disaster, and 3 points into Resonance. Come down here, and then 1 point into Quick Shift. 3 points into Heightened Senses for even more damage reduction. And then we use Nature's Fury. Now that is with the Crone Staff. If you're not using the Crone Staff, I actually drop Cyclone Armor. And I added the extra Fortify back into Safeguard. 2 points into there, and then an extra point into Digigate for the extra movement speed. And then for your toolbar, you're going to want to have Storm Strike on your toolbar when you are not using Crone Staff. That way, with Natural Balance, you're still able to proc that extra critical strike damage, and then also proc your Nature's Fury passive that much more often. Alright, first we'll go ahead and cover the gear. The stats that you're going to want will not change, but the aspects will, depending if you use Crone Staff or don't use Crone Staff. Now, on your helmet, you're going to want to go ahead and have Maximum Life, Total Armor, Barrier Generation, and Basic Skill Attack Speed. On your chest, the number one thing that you're going to want is the +4 rings of Earthen Bulwark to give you that huge barrier for trying to face tank Lilith. But then you're also going to want 2 types of damage reduction and barrier generation. On the gloves, we're going to go ahead and have critical strike chance, attack speed, critical strike damage with earth skills. Now, I have attack speed for 4 seconds after dodging an attack. The way that you do this is either by having a rogue where you can go ahead and re-roll a pair of gloves over there, put that stat on those gloves, put it in your stash, and then use it on your druid. You can also join the Discord The Diablo 4 Sanctuary Discord, try to buy a pair in there. If you don't want to do either of those, that is kind of a flex stat where you could go maybe some CDR or even a little bit more critical strike damage, but that's entirely up to you. For pants, you're going to want full damage reduction from close enemies, fortified, enemies that are poisoned, and then the biggest one for this is damage reduction while injured. I actually got a max roll on my damage reduction while injured, and that is a key point of being able to face tank Lilith. You're really going to want to try to get over 80% total damage reduction while injured. I'm at, I think it's 79 point something percent. Yeah, 79.3%, which was plenty for me, especially with having our barrier so high. Then on our boots, you're going to want movement speed. If you're running the gloves that give you the attack speed after dodge, then you're going to want dodge chance on your boots. If you're not, then you can go like willpower or something for a little bit more damage. Then you want total armor while werewolf form and more damage reduction while injured. On your amulet, this is what will change a little bit depending if you are doing Lilith runs or Nightmare Dungeons. You can use this setup for Nightmare Dungeons. It's just not quite as efficient. So on my amulet, it's not a perfect roll, but it worked for me. I have damage reduction to close enemies, ranks of all defensive skills, damage reduction while injured, and then I have extra damage on here. Then for my Malignant Heart, I use the one that gives you more critical strike damage, but you lose out on critical strike or non-critical strikes. That's really good for the big, massive damage to Lilith, but obviously when you're running through Nightmare Dungeons, it's not quite as important. So instead, when I'm doing Nightmare Dungeons, I have movement speed, total armor while a werewolf, damage reduction while injured again, because damage reduction while injured is the biggest thing besides the ranks to Bulwark for this build, and then 3 ranks to Envenom. And then I use Inexorable Force to pull everybody in when I'm ulting to get that massive mob clear and be able to clear dungeons that much faster. On our rings, you're going to want the same on both rings. You're going to want vulnerable damage, max life, critical strike chance, and barrier generation. Then for the rings, it really doesn't change, or doesn't matter how you kind of do it with the hearts. You're going to want to have your brutal heart be revenge so that you get the extra damage reduction. And then you're going to want your barber heart. And of course, with barber hearts, it depends, Lilith or not. If you're clearing mobs, it's better to have under 3 seconds. If you're going for Lilith, it's better to have over 3 seconds. You can clear mobs still with the over 3 seconds if you don't want to have 2 different rings with 2 different barber hearts, but that is entirely up to you. Okay, first we'll go ahead and cover aspects for the non-Crone staff build. You're going to want to have Earth and Might on your helmet. You're going to want Mending Stone on your chest for the extra duration of your Bulwark, making sure that you have Bulwark up for as long as possible. This is key for having the non-Crone staff build, just because the cooldowns aren't quite as fast as you would have them with Crone staff, so it definitely saves you in certain situations. Then you're going to want to be a little bit tankier without the Crone staff as well. So we go with the ballistic aspect so that you get the extra 2 ranks to Earth skills. We'll be at a total of 14 ranks in Bulwark with this instead of the standard 12. You want Disobedience as always on your pants, just for the extra tankiness. You're going to want Ghost Walker on your boots. For your axe or your main hand, you're going to want Natural Balance so that you're doing the extra critical strike damage after a storm skill. On your totem, you're going to want Crash Stone for the extra damage to enemies who are CC'd. Anytime you have Hurricane procced, that will proc that, so it works great against Lilith. You're going to want to have Rapid on one of your rings. That way you get the extra basic skill attack speed, since you are losing some from Crone, but you're going to use this either way. But you want to make sure to have it on a ring for this build, just because you can only fit Ballistic on gloves. Then you're going to want Nature is Savagery, so that werewolf skills function as storm skills for your Nature's Fury aspect, just to help with those cooldowns a little bit more. And then you're always going to want to have Symbiotic Aspect on your amulet. I only have a 7-second cooldown, unfortunately, on this one, but you can get up to 8. And honestly, if you're running No Crone staff, you should really try to find that one that gives you the 8 seconds. Okay, now if you're running Crone staff, there is going to be some changes. You're still going to want Aspect of Might on your helm for the extra damage reduction. You're going to want Mending Stone on your chest. That way you have the increased length of your bulwark. For me, I went conceded onto my gauntlets instead, my gloves. That way I did an extra 25% damage while having a barrier active. I preferred this over the one that gives you the extra 2 ranks to earth skills while fortified. I was okay only having 12 points into my bulwark instead of the 14. I felt like I was able to kill Lilith way faster, and then you don't need to have quite as much barrier because you're going through the phases a lot quicker. On your pants, you're going to want to have Disobedience again for the extra damage reduction. You're going to want Ghost Walkers, that way you have the extra movement speed. You want Symbiotic Aspect as always. Ideally, you want that 8 seconds, but 7 seconds is still really good, especially with Crone Staff. With Crone Staff, you just literally have infinite bulwark. It's pretty crazy. So the 7 to 8 isn't quite as important. Then I went Natural Balance. That way I was doing the extra critical strike damage. And then Rapid on my ring for the extra basic skill attack speed. You have a ton of basic skill attack speed already with Crone Staff, but having that extra up to 30% is definitely huge. Alright, for Spirit Boons on this one, we're going to be sticking with Wariness, 10% reduced damage from elites. We are going to go Swooping Attacks because you want that attack speed to get your bulwark back as fast as possible. Then we'll be going Iron Feather. The maximum life is really nice. Even though this is a low life build, the more max life you have, the bigger threshold you have to get into that low life mechanic. So I did stack some max life on my Spirit Boons and then also on my gear. Then we're going to go Bolster. That way we just stay as fortified as possible. We're always popping defensive skills, so this is pretty much always proccing. And then Calm Before the Storm. That way we can get our ultimate back as quickly as possible. The Paragon board, we end up using 7 different boards and 7 glyphs total. I tried playing around with a bunch of different Paragon boards, and to be honest, I ended up copying Goblin Inc.'s Paragon board because it is definitely the best at being min-maxed for this build. You guys should definitely check him out. He posts a ton of really good content for Diablo 4. For the glyphs, you're going to want to use Earth and Sky. Nature magic skills deal an extra 10% increased damage to crown-controlled or vulnerable enemies, plus the extra bonus it gives to magic nodes. Then we're going to go ahead and go into Fang and Claw for the increased damage while on Werewolf. And then also for the bonus to the magic nodes, we go into Protector for the 10% barrier, for the 10% damage reduction. And then again, the bonus to the rare nodes. We use Shapeshifter. That way we get an extra 20% chance at critical strikes. You're going to want to use Spirit for the extra critical strike damage. Come down here and we're going to use Werewolf, so you gain the extra damage reduction, plus dealing more damage while you're in Werewolf. And then Undaunted for the damage reduction and increased damage. Now, I won't cover the entire build or the entire Paragon board and the ins and outs of it, but you will want to make sure that you follow it in my guide. That way, you make sure to do each board at a time. One thing a lot of people seem to forget is that as you add Paragon boards, it makes it so that the rare nodes end up costing more. And so if you are level 100 and you just go what's the quickest route, isn't going to be the most efficient route for making sure you get those extra bonuses to your rare nodes. But as always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment, let me know what you think. But most of all, make sure you sub to the channel and you click that bell so you know every time I'm posting new content.